Hi, folks. Good afternoon. Hey, we got a special edition of An Hour with Bob today. I got an old friend here, been around forever, even longer than I have, actually. And he's been around all the stations.
How long have you been around?
This is my 30th, well, I'm in my 30th year right now. But that's, but you have been around. Mike Lyons, by the way, I didn't get to say it. Mike Lyons, how you doing?
Great to see you.
Nice to see you. In fact, I saw you I was on TV and I happened to see a clip of you accepting this award.
Very nice. I'm very proud of
that is the Hall of Fame, right?
Yes, it is. As surprised as I was to get that call from Steve Cass, as I mentioned that night, my gratitude to the Old Timers Committee.
Well, you certainly deserved it. My God, you've been, how long have you been around on television?
76.
1976.
I mean, that part of my life ended about, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. You know, the TV end of it, I stopped sports anchoring since then. I've been with the Woo Sox, Paw Sox for, the Paw Sox for 9 and the Woo Sox for 1.
Right.
Just finished my 10th year with the team. So,
and you're still living in Rhode Island and driving up there.
I love Rhode Island. I'm a Chicago kid. Grew up, as they said that night, in the shadows of Wrigley Field. Got to watch the Bears and the Cubbies.
I know you're a big Bear fan because when we meet up watching games together,
I'm still very loyal to those teams. But
I know you are.
But I love Rhode Island. I've spent more time here than anywhere else in my life. I've got 45 years in this year.
Wow.
And starting in 76. So, yeah, I came here as the sports anchor at 6 in 76.
1976.
Truman Taylor.
With Truman, we discussed that off camera. With Truman Taylor in 76. How long were you at Channel 6?
About 6 years.
6 years, and then you left there and you went where?
I went to 12.
Channel 12.
WPRI, and then I got
how long were you there?
A little bit shot, several years, probably a bunch of years. I worked, as the weekend guy. Gorman was the Monday through Friday guy. And I was
Mike Gorman.
I was there quite a while, and then I got the same fellow who released me, fired me is the correct word, at Channel 6. Believe it or not, I wound up getting the job as the news director at Channel 7, and he called me up and hired me.
The guy that let you go with 6.
It's a way funnier story than that, but I need a couple of pints to share the story.
He was from Channel 6. You got to Channel 7.
At the time I was at Channel 6, Ken Bell left Channel 10 to go do Evening Magazine in Milwaukee. And when he did that, an opportunity arose for a weekend guy at Channel 10. I think this was still in the days of Chris Clark. And so I thought I thought I had a real shot at that job, but the news director and the people at Channel 6 kind of assured me that I was safe at 6, that they wanted to start to do what now is pretty much the rule of thumb. Back then, they didn't do any 15-minute sportscasts. They should have because of the kind of teams and interests we had in sports. Even back then, they didn't. So the most you would get is...
Especially the Bruins were huge back then.
Yeah, yes.
Right?
It's Don Cherry's team, one of my favorite all-time coaches. So at any rate, I thought I was going to maybe go to 10, but then I got this good offer at 6, but it was verbal. And I was going to get a weekend show, 15 minutes, et cetera. And then they called me in after a Boston Marathon. They had an opportunity to hire Gil Santos, who at that time was the Patriot announcer. Then BZ lost the rights to the Patriots. They went to EEI. John Carlson started to do the games. And so Gil Santos, who was a wonderful play-by-play guy, all of a sudden needed a gig. And
so he went to 6?
The owners at 6 at that time, Pulitzer Broadcasting had bought him out. And they wanted some names. They eventually got Giorgi over to 6, et cetera. And so they wanted some names, and they hired Gil Santos, and they called me in between two newscasts and showed me the door.
I'll see you. Really?
And the even better story around that is I didn't know what to do or tell my wife. In fact, the Journal wrote a wonderful story on a month or two later about what happened to me.
Really?
The title of the story I think was The Twilight Zone, something like that. Because it was so typical of broadcasting that I had been promised a job, passed on the job at Channel 10 because I thought I was going to be in better shape at Channel 6.
Sure.
And because the 10 gig was a weekend gig, the Channel 6 job was the
Monday
through Friday.
Gig and a 15-minute gig,
right? So on the weekend. So anyway, so what happened was between the two newscasts, I was let go. My wife called in that period of time and wanted me to copy off some things for her. She was a school teacher, a wonderful, wonderful school teacher. And she wanted me to copy some things off. And when she called in and said, I'd like to talk to Mike They said he no longer works here.
Oh my God! She didn't even hear it
No.
from you.
And that is how they found out. That's how she
Holly
found out.
didn't hear it from
No.
you. Oh my God!
And the even better part of that story is I went
Wow.
out after the 11 o'clock news with some of the people from 6 for whom I was very friendly, George Allen, who did the weather, etc. Dining for Dollars guy.
I was just going to
Everybody will
say
remember.
that. That was
Another
dialing-
terrific guy.
Yeah.
And anyway, so we went out and had a couple of beers, and I went home, and I'm laying in bed on one side. I didn't want to say anything to my wife, who I thought was asleep.
You still haven't told her.
No, I haven't told her.
You didn't know she knew.
No. She's on the other side, and she was too nervous to say anything to me. So the two of us were wide awake, and I thought she was asleep, and she didn't want to burst my bubble.
I
So
can
that's
believe it too. Knowing your wife, I can
true
believe
story.
both.
So she didn't find out till the next day.
Cut it out.
Yeah.
You said it the next day to her.
Yeah, yeah. But she knew. Yeah, she knew.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
I know that.
You know, because as I said, my only conversation with her is I have to make this decision about maybe 6 or 10, et cetera. Steve
Right.
Kaminas was then the news director at 10, who's another. I loved him. He was an awesome guy. I got to know him pretty well on a personal level.
Right.
You know, before and after that. So, at any rate, that's how I lost the gig. I went to work at 12, and then on the weekends, and then the fellow who let me go, Peter Lyons, who I'd never thought had done the dirty work. I thought that was a decision from the powers that be above because
Right.
of Gil Santos being available. And he called me up and said, Michael, I know we didn't part on the best of terms, but I'm now the news director at Channel 7, and if you'd like the weekend gig, it's yours, and
Wow.
I took it.
What talk about an uptake?
Yeah.
I mean, that's big.
Yeah, so that was my trip to the big leagues. As I tell people, even now at Polar Park, when I just tell people this, I'm hanging around just waiting to get called back up.
Yeah, from the minors, right?
45 years later, yeah. Getting called up from AAA. So, so I did it for about a year, and then, unfortunately for me, the license was being challenged
Channel
at Channel
7's?
7 because the parent company for Channel 7 at that time had done some kind of nefarious activity, and they eventually lost their license. But in that whole period, there was a hiring freeze. I couldn't get hired as a
no.
full-time guy. And so anyway, eventually, that opportunity went by. The station got sold to another group, et cetera. Their people come in and so forth. So, so then I went back to Channel 12. In the meantime, I was doing play-by-play. I had done Providence College hockey. I had done University of Rhode Island football. So I was kind of happy in all of that.
Right.
And then I wound up at Channel 10. And the way I got onto the marketing side, which is I got a lot of good stories here. After 45 years.
Yeah, you've done a lot of marketing, actually.
Yeah, so anyway, so that was in, I don't know, well into the 80s. And so we used to all drink, the media guys, at a bar on Wickenden Street in Providence. And we would all just hang out. We got to
Wickenden
know
Street.
it's up where the...
Going up the hill.
Yeah, exactly. Up
right?
toward, the Johnson and Wales and Brown people and stuff hang up
Yeah,
in there.
yeah.
Gano. So anyway, we used to all hang out there and socialize. We got to know each other really well on a personal level, even though we didn't work necessarily, in that organization. And so one day I lost a job, an anchoring job. It might have been the 10 one or the 12 one, probably 12 or 10. I'm sorry. So I was sitting in the bar, and a guy next to me was a guy named Timmy Gorman, who was an ex-Notre Dame football player, played for Parsegian on the national championship, one of his national championship teams,
wow.
and he was now one of the sales managers at WPRO. And he, without even looking up from his glass, just kind of said out loud so that I could hear it, hey, Lyons, before you get ugly, you might want to try marketing.
I love it. That's a great
story.
line.
And so then what happened is I said to him, what do you mean? And he said, we're about to get the rights away from WHJJ, who at that time had the Red Sox. Right. In fact, in the 80s.
Now we're in radio. Now we're talking radio.
And I had worked actually at HJJ in the 80s when Sherm Strickhauser was there and Steve Cass.
Pawtucket guy, by the way.
Yeah, great guys. And Steve Cass, who was the one who called me about the award, which
Good guy.
I was shocked
Good
about.
guy.
But anyway, they lost the Red Sox one summer because of the strike. They called me up and asked me if I wanted to do a talk sports show, and I did it that whole year. And that's one of the first, certainly was the first radio talk sports show ever. It was on
Really?
HJY or HJJ, and it was because of the baseball strike. So I got to know all those guys really well. And then at the same time, Timmy said to me, what do you think about selling the Red Sox that following year when they went over to PRO? And I hadn't sold much, and so I said, how do I do that exactly? And it really wasn't hard because all you had to do was walk into a business, and as soon as you walked in, they would look at you much like they probably look at you, and they go, hey,
Aren't you?
Lyons, what the heck's wrong with the Patriots? You know, what's wrong with the pitching staff with the Red Sox?
Right.
And so I'd be 20 minutes into that conversation trying to remind myself why I was there. And so obviously I did pretty well in sales and marketing, in large part because I had all this wonderful experience in sports behind me. And so I stayed at PRO for a bunch of years, 8 or 10, and then EEI came into town. And EEI had this,
out of Boston.
Yeah, exactly. And they had this, powerful. They were the #1 rated station at the time in Boston.
Yep.
And they had everybody. They had the Pats and the Celtics and just about everybody. And so, a woman called me up one day from that group and said, I had left a job in Chicago years before. I had a couple of times during my 45 years here, I'd actually taken jobs out of town after I lost that Channel 6 job. So there's couple little bumps in the road there. And I had taken a job in Chicago because a woman called me and said, Michael, I took a job actually as the sports marketing manager for the Bears and Blackhawks. I'm a Chicago kid.
Wow.
And then, believe it or not,
you must have been in your glory.
Well, I loved it. My son is still mad at me for ever giving that job up. But what he didn't consider then or even now, I don't think, and most people who has ever been in showbiz can relate to this, I was faced with a decision after I'd been there for months. 2 of my kids had graduated college. One was going into her senior year. And I'm, whatever the distance from here to Chicago is away, 1,500 miles. Yeah. And I sat down with my wife one day and I said, you know what? They're all going to grow up there. And we're going to get to see them, on holidays and vacations. I just said, that's just not acceptable. So I chucked the job in Chicago, which...
Came back here.
Painful. Yeah, painful. And came back here and, as I say, the EI opportunity was there. That same woman who hired me in Chicago said, Michael, I know you're not going to come back to Chicago. I know you did it for the right reasons. She said, but what if we bought a station in Providence?
No kidding.
And they bought EEI, that same group. And then that opportunity became available, and I was there, about 10 years.
Yeah, in fact, we did the promos for the Toys for Tots.
Yeah,
I did the voiceover.
Well, I've always been involved. That's one of my great joys. In fact, you probably know this. This coming week, I'm not quite sure the dates or when the show will run, but later this month, not later this week, but later this month, a guy by the name of George Farrell, who's an ex-Providence fire chief, who started the Rhode Island Honor Flights, who was just about as good a guy as you could ever meet. Yep. Has given me the opportunity to join the group, the team, to go on one of the honor flights. I was in the Marines. Yep. Not a combat veteran. Most of my time was in the reserves, but I've always been close to Toys for Tots because I always felt like there was a need and I knew I could help. And so wherever I've been, I was always kind of the media arm of Toys for Tots. In the market. Yep. Because that's run by the reserves, Marine Reserves, and they get rotated out every so often. And when they do, the people come in have no historical knowledge of the market, and therefore they got to start from scratch.
They don't know Rhode Island.
No, so I kind of bridged that. And so that's been one of my favorite things outside of my this litany of things I'd done broadcast-wise in my career. So I finished up at EEI. And after 10 years, and then I ran into Mike Tamburro. That was the year after, I think the year after Ben passed away. And we went out again, had a couple of beers. That kind of surrounds some of my opportunities.
That's where I'm missing out, because I don't drink. That's where I miss out, huh?
Exactly.
I should start drinking.
A lot of opportunities there. So we went out and had a couple of beers, and he said, Michael, Ben's gone. I think he can help us. I know you'll have fun. And I just finished my 10th season with the Pawtucket Red Sox. So how lucky am I?
Right, yeah.
And baseball, of all of the sports, is my great love. I played it through college. I still play on a senior softball team.
Is that amazing?
The entire team is 75 to 79. The entire team. We travel,
That's unbelievable. Yeah.
I did
You got
this
to be
year.
between 75 and 79?
79, yeah.
Wow.
And my wife told me all the way back in college when we met, we literally met through baseball. One of her sorority sisters dated one of my teammates. And that's how I literally met my wife.
Wow.
And
that was how many years ago?
That was 1965.
Are you serious?
In college.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but back then she'd say to me, because she knew my great love for baseball, she said, "I'll bet you're still playing when you're 80." And the last couple of years, I said, I'm getting close.
Wow.
So yeah. So that's kind of a sidebar to. So anyway, what a great joy to be working with Mike Tamburro, who is one of the great people in my life.
Yep. I saw him when they were closing the stadium. I ran into him in the bleachers, and he had tears
I couldn't go over there.
Eyes. He had tears in his eyes.
I did too. That last year, as much as we would have loved to have had it, we had such wonderful plans for the fans, and then we had to chuck it because of COVID. We lost all of 2020. I can't even begin to tell you how much more painful it was for us.
Yeah.
I couldn't go.
No, I know.
I'm getting emotional thinking about it now. I couldn't go to the park. I still haven't. Talk about not going to Worcester for a game. Other than because a great group called Rhode Island, Rhode Island DMAT, the Rhode Island Medical Reserve Corps, which runs a lot of the testing and runs a lot of the giving people their shots. That's a 1,500 person medical reserve corps, all volunteer. They do this outside of their hours, and they run some of those tests, a lot of that testing right outside of McCoy.
Right.
So I've been there for that.
Yep.
But I've not been inside or anything else. It hurts. I mean, as I say to people all the time, everything that exists in Rhode Island, that existed in Pawtucket, exists in Worcester. There's a soup kitchen. There's a boys club. There's a Special Olympics. There's a, name it. All those things exist. The difference is, the best analogy I can draw is a year or two ago, I went to the birthday party for a Special Olympian when Michael turned 40. I met Michael when he was 7 years old. So all of these issues and causes and things that you could mention that we're involved in, that I've been involved in, that's how far back I go with them. And so they take a bullet. We were not only a great means for them to raise their flag and point to their cause,
but also raise money.
Raise a ton of money. We wrote a lot of checks, and I'm hoping that we can keep the foundation going here, the Paw Sox Foundation. We did a golf tournament last year. We couldn't do it this year, and I hope I don't alienate the mayor of Pawtucket, who I love and love his wife even more. They're
we saw him the other night.
Yes, they're wonderful people, but the city, for some reason, beyond our comprehension, is suing the ball club because they think we left with a lot of their equipment. We don't agree with that interpretation, and Michael has said to me that's the only one making any money are the lawyers. So right now, what we do or not do, what we can or can't do is obviously more limited. But I hope eventually we can get back to contributing in a more meaningful way to the community here.
What do you mean left with equipment?
Well, I don't know I didn't read the legal document, but basically it just said that there's stuff that we took with us that we shouldn't have. That explain it in layman's terms?
No, not really.
No. Don't play lawyer on me because I'll be in over my head.
I don't know what equipment you could have taken from them.
I don't know what the city gave
the
us.
lawnmower or something?
Well, you were in that park over the last several years. I don't think they invested a whole hell of a lot. The city I'm talking about.
Right.
So so we moved on, and we're in Worcester, and the reality is it's been a marvel, just a huge success, well beyond I think any of our expectations.
So I'm told.
Selling the seats out, selling the sponsorships out. The fans, even on a rainy day, will be on the concourse having their hot dogs and beers and ice creams like there never was going to be a game. They're just happy to be there. So
really?
we have a waiting line for season tickets. We have a waiting line for sponsorships.
How many people does it hold?
It holds 9,500. But what's really cool about it, which we had hoped would be in Pawtucket or initially Providence, what's really cool about it is there are only 6,000 some odd fixed seats. There's over 3,000 seats.
Yep, don't worry.
That are general admission, and there's over 23 hospitality areas. So the views you can get from different places in the ballpark and still have a seat and still have a table to put your food and beverages and whatever the hell, are all over the park, So it's I tell people when they come up, when friends come up, don't buy, if I can't leave them tickets, don't buy a $22 box seat, which is more than they paid in Pawtucket.
Right.
But get yourself one or two or three or four general admission tickets for $9, and you're going to have a hell of a day. You can walk the ballpark. We're building all kinds of things outside the park. We didn't do it last because there was too much to do, and COVID obviously interrupted the building.
Yeah.
We have a 5-story building going up, much like Baltimore, that will actually sit inside the park. You'll be able to sit on or stand on the rooftop of that building, have a beer, and watch the game down below.
Oh, yeah.
Then there'll be office space.
Like the
Baltimore.
factory in Baltimore.
Exactly. And
which
the
was
problem
always my best park, my favorite park.
The wrinkle for us right now is there isn't that kind of demand on commercial space. So, we wisely decided we'd postpone that until this year. But there's a couple of hotels going up. There are a couple of housing units that are going to hold, a couple of hundred people, families in them. There's a 14-story building going up beyond right field, which I believe is an office structure of some kind. So there's all kinds of things going on outside the park. We just
Right.
finished a street that's going to look like the old Yawkey Way. On that street is a duck boat, is an old historical diner, is a one of the beer relationships that we have that actually has a building and a structure out there. So even on non-game days, you're going to be able to walk those streets in those areas. They're building a park which will lead up to the main ticket office, which hasn't even been built yet out in the outfield. The main office this year has been behind home, but next year we'll have a chance to kind of build some of that stuff out and massage some of it, and that's what it'll look like next year. So it's still quite a ways to go until it's completed.
Seems like
doing well.
You mentioned Baltimore.
Yeah.
It seems like, and that's a Larry Lucchino influence.
There you go.
Being an Oriole fan and having
Larry Lucchino and Janet Marie Smith,
yep,
who were the architects of Polar Park.
Camden Yards.
Started in Camden Yards.
Yep.
Built that. Went to San Diego and built Petco. Built Fenway South in Florida. Had a lot to do with the whole, like probably close to $1 billion renovations in Fenway over the last, all these years. What it was, what it is today, and what it was. If you go back to my last playoff game, which I was at that playoff game last night, I was reminding friends, I was at the one in '78.
With Dent? With Bucky?
I was standing on the rooftop in left field because then they didn't have all the seats up there where the light towers are. Right. And there was such a demand for press back there then that I actually was on the rooftop and I actually saw that Dent ball go over and then hustle downstairs to you kind of wait to see which locker room I was going to go in. If Yastrzemski had gotten a, base hit, double, triple home run, we might have turned the tide and I would have been going to the Red Sox locker room.
Right.
That was, I think he said, his greatest disappointment. And then I wound up going in.
Never liked him. Yeah. I never liked him. I didn't. I never liked him.
Well, he was always a tough interview because he was so
terrible.
Intense.
Yeah.
But he was a wonderful, wonderful, behind, who would you pick behind Ortiz and Williams other than Carl Yastrzemski? And think about it, he turned the tide in terms of fan interest. They never used to draw. They never drew in Boston for Ted Williams.
No, that's for sure.
But in '67, they started coming.
Yeah. Well,
and last night was such a. I went with my grandson. My oldest grandson came in, and I can't just tell you what a joy.
Yeah.
It was to bring him, and just kind of see it through his eyes.
I was at when Dent hit that home run. Yeah. I was with a guy, a huge Yankee fan, but a big guy. Fortunately, he was a big guy because we walked in this bar, big bar, one of the biggest bars I ever seen in Rutland, Vermont. Yeah. And all the Vermonters are sitting there. 90% of them had Red Sox jerseys, Red Sox hats. Here comes this guy, Ned Martin's his name, ironically. Wasn't he a famous
sure, broadcaster,
announcer?
Red Sox broadcaster, one of the best.
Yeah. He's got the Yankee hat on. He's got the Yankee jacket on, the Yankee shirt on. And we walk in this bar. He goes, Ned, you ain't going in there. He goes, no, this is going to be fun. I go, you're going to get killed. No, they ain't going to bother me. And he was from there. Not from there, but he gone up there many times. So we walk in the place, and sure enough, he's getting stares, looks, and yelled at, and everything else. And we walked in there. I think Dent was on deck when we walked in there. Well, they're all yelling at him, laughing at him because the Red Sox were ahead at the time. Was it the 8th inning that happened?
Yeah.
And when Dent hit that home run, it was silence for about 2 seconds. And Ned, being a big guy, he had the big voice to match, and he started tearing up everybody in the place. You bums, you Red Sox bums. He really laid into everybody.
Well, think about it. Until 2004, there never was I can relate in a big way because I'm a Chicago Cub fan until 14, 15, and then 16. When Ernie Banks died a couple of years ago, I was reminded of the fact that in 19 big league seasons, the Cubs finished above 500. I think it was either 4 or 5 times.
Wow.
So that's the kind of conditions he played under. And the Red Sox were like that forever until, with a couple of bumps, 67 and 86 and whatever. And again, they failed to the Mets. But
75.
Right, exactly. But they never, until 03, 04, that's when they hit it big time. And then that kind of opened the floodgates to the championships that have, they've been able to, Bogarts last night, I had forgotten he was on not only the 18 team, but he was on the 13 team. He had the big hit last night.
I know he did, two-run home in the first inning.
But he's been with them that long, and, there's 2 championships right there. And we've had 4 since 2000 in the first 21 years of the century. So Red Sox have done very well by themselves.
And isn't it ironic that the Patriots just lost to Tampa Bay, and now the Red Sox are going to Tampa Bay to play Tampa Bay in baseball.
Again, we've said it many times, and I can't remember the publications that have honored Boston as the best sports city in America. But when you take a look at not only the history of these teams, but their success in recent years, whether you're talking about the Patriots or the Red Sox,
Or hockey.
or hockey. I mean, the Bruins have only won one.
Or
But
basketball.
they've been there, and the Celtics too. You're right. I mean, it is not that long ago when they had the big three and you know.
Oh, they
won the
totally
NBA title.
dominated for several years, right?
So yeah. So and they had Bird. So no, all of these teams are these historically successful franchises. You know that Celtic logo, that Bruin big B on the center of the sweater.
Yep.
You know the Red Sox and Patriots monikers. Heck, I had my grandson up at Foxborough for his birthday a few weeks ago, and by happenstance we were going to watch the Patriot game, and Ty Law happened to be in there, signing autographs. So
Yep.
my grandson got to meet him. We were going to go over to the pro shop to get a shirt, and my grandson picked out the red shirt, the old classic historical jersey.
Right.
And we had Ty Law's name put on the back, and then we went back to the restaurant
that's
we were
cool.
at, and Ty Law signed the shirt for him. Now the only bummer is he won't wear the shirt. He wants to frame it because. But I mean, my
'Cause
point
it's
is that it has
signed.
that kind of significance,
Right.
and the legacy is such that for me, for my children, and now my grandchildren, you know, it's all still there.
Now the red shirts, that was Grogan's years.
Yeah,
Right?
but it goes back to the red shirt was all the way back to the Patriots in the '60s when they started.
Right. When they were the Boston.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
The Boston
but they wore that
Patriots.
red shirt too, red and white. But you
Right.
know, yeah.
Right. There was something I was just trying to think of. Now I lost it. Now I lost it, huh?
Happens to all of us.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately for me now, you know, for the most part, when that happens, I'm not on camera. The only one that notices is my wife or my children.
Oh, I know what it was. There was a show called First Look. This guy's called Johnny Bananas. He does a good job. He reminds me of what I would have done if I got lucky enough to do a show nationally with Bob's Big Adventure, where I go to different places around the world. And he's done some of the shows, some of the places he's done, I've actually done myself. I've been to, like Thailand and Morocco and Brazil and Russia and all that kind of stuff. Well, he did a show last week in Chicago. All right, he was in Chicago, and he was talking to a sports guy in Chicago in a bar in Chicago, and they were talking about who's the greatest fans in sports, and they said Chicago is the greatest sports town in the country.
Well, I'm obviously, you know, I'm biased there. You know, if you grew up in Boston, then you know you should root for your roots. Like that game the other night, you know, it was a little bit more difficult for me because I'm a Bear fan. I'm a Chicago guy, so I was kind of torn between do I root for Brady or do I root for the Pats. It kind of reminded me of going to the Super Bowl in '86 when the Bears played the Patriots. At the beginning,
God, and killed
at the
them.
beginning, I was for the Bears. I'm a Chicago kid. But about halftime when they were getting their brains beat out, I said, I know all these guys. I know Grogan. I know Nelson. I know all these guys, France, all these guys. I don't want them to get crushed.
Right.
You know, and the other night I was kind of torn, but I wanted it to be a close game. I wanted it to be
Well,
a
you got
competitive
it.
game. And in the end, I'm telling you, I was agonizing on that last field goal. Did I want the Patriots to make it or not?
Right,
you know?
right.
And in the end, I think there was more of me saying, you know, you root for the name on the front, not the name on the back.
Right.
So that's kind of where I've been my whole life with sports. I tell people here, I tell fans all the time, I'm a big New England fan. I'm a big Red Sox fan. I'm a big Patriot fan. I'm a big Bruin fan
Right.
until they play Chicago. And I've been lucky enough. You know, I've seen the Bears and the Pats in the Super Bowl. I've seen the Bruins and the Blackhawks in the Stanley Cup Finals. You know, I haven't seen a Red Sox Cup World Series yet, but you
Well,
know,
that would be
pretty cool.
Oh, that would be something.
Came close in '03. Yeah, came close.
That would be something. Didn't Buckner come from there?
That's where he had the most success in his career.
Right.
The Cubbies.
Yeah.
He was a wonderful defensive first base. He made the historic error,
Right,
but
right.
you know, as everybody kind of admitted afterwards, he never should have been on the field for that.
Well, they were taking
last
him
play.
out and putting Stapleton
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
right? In the
Yeah.
last, in
And then,
defensively.
but then the manager said, I just wanted him on the field.
Right.
for
Well, he
that
could have been
great
in the
moment.
dugout,
Yeah.
right? And he would have come out after the game was won.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
what I
you know,
didn't understand.
that's how history turns sometimes.
Yeah, well,
I take a look
exactly.
at just my, you know, that 45 years I spent here. Hard to imagine I would have preferred to have been like some of the guys I was honored with, you know, like Giorgi or whatever. It pretty much found a home and stayed there. Coletta, although Giorgi had 10 and 6, but you know, I would have preferred that. It didn't work out that way. But in the end, as I've said to my wife very recently, you know, if we had to get, in a sense, from my broadcast career perspective, stuck somewhere, what a wonderful place to get stuck in Rhode Island, in Providence.
Wow.
So I've been
Now,
blessed.
is Holly from? No, she's not from.
No,
there.
we met at college, Southern Illinois, and
Right.
she's from Evanston, Illinois. I'm from Chicago. Yeah, so no, we're imports, but we spent, as I said to you, 45 years here. That's more than half my life. I'm not 103.
Well, you've done good, and
Thanks.
and now
Thanks.
you're a Hall of Famer.
Thanks. Well, it's it's humbling. It's a great honor, especially at this point in my life. So when Cass called, I mean, I was stunned. I was absolutely
Really?
stunned. Oh, sure, I was. Yeah. I mean, I realized I just was. It's just not my makeup. That's just not me. I always felt like I was good enough to be a starter on any team I ever played on. I always felt like I made contributions. I feel
Right.
that way now. I do at the various places I worked, but I never felt like I was the MVP or the leading hitter or the go. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right.
So I guess maybe it's like he asked to the Hall. You know, part of it was just he was there so many years. He kind of piled up the stats. So in my case, I piled up the different radio and TV stations, and that way I was blessed because I got to meet a lot of wonderful, a lot of really terrific people. I got to work with a lot of them.
Work with a lot and interview
And
a lot.
guess
of
what?
them.
And I still am. Here I am already missing the season, which only ended a week ago or two, and loving those trips I make with Tamburo and Gwinny up the 146 to Worcester. I can't even begin to tell you. There's a wonderful book called Teammates, written about Ted Williams and Pesky and DiMaggio, those guys going to visit him. The title of the book is Teammates, but it's really about friendship.
Right.
And I would say very much like with me and Gwinny, who's been with the team 35 years and just an awesome human being. You know, those trips that we make, same thing. We're teammates, but I think it's way more about friendship.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. You all drive up together. 3 years? Huh?
Up and back, yeah.
Wow.
It's pretty cool.
Well, that's an hour, little over an hour ride, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's not bad. 41 miles from where I meet them. 41 miles, and we usually do it in under an hour. And same thing coming back unless we decide to stop for something to eat or
For
whatever. Yeah, no, but
something
isn't that
to
great?
eat?
Yeah. Well, Gwinny's got a long drive, so we don't usually stop for a beer or anything. But it's just such a great joy to be with them. I feel like, this will be my last stop. I'm pretty sure of that. And I'm grateful to have the opportunity to have that opportunity.
Well, it's good that you stayed in. I thought you were going to be done when they moved.
I did too.
I thought they were not going to give you a shot.
Part of me said, are they going to look at the roster and say, Mike Lyons, what does he do exactly? How old is he? Does he have a key? Can we let him in the building? But they did. Larry Lucchino, too, by the way. He's been an awesome, he's a Pittsburgh guy, and at his guts, at his core, he's a Pittsburgh kid who was very good at basketball, got to go play at Princeton, and from there, his contacts career, just kind of, just rose to the stature now where he'll go in the Baseball Hall of Fame for what he's done, not only for his accomplishments on the field, but more so what he's done with these ballparks. He is a terrific, straight from the shoulder.
I like the guy. I had a long chat with him.
And I say all
one day.
those things despite the fact that he was nice enough to get tickets for my grandson and I for the game last night. So I'm blessed in a lot of ways, and that's another one.
Wow. So where did you sit in the game last night?
A grandstand seat, but a great one, right by first base. I don't know what the Red Sox are thinking, but those tickets were $75, and everybody I've talked to said you couldn't buy that for a cold game in April, and especially for the Yankees. But
Right.
that's what those seats were in. But they were great, and it was just to be in that atmosphere, just to park your car, and just like any Yankee Red Sox, the buzz starts. You start to see those Yankee shirts, from Jeter. I saw Lou Gehrig last night, a number 4.
Wow.
So just to be in the midst of that and expose my grandson to that.
Yeah.
How lucky am I? Good way to wrap this up. How lucky am I?
How lucky are you? How many home runs they hit last night?
Well, I off the top of my head, I can't. Let me think. The Red Sox had, I think, 3, and the Yankees might have had a couple. I was happy that 2 Cubs, Schwarber and Anthony Rizzo, both hit them. A little happier that
Joe Rocco said to me.
Schwarber did, but
Joe Rocco asked me what I thought of the game last night, right? And I sent him a text. He asked me who I liked in the game last night. And I sent him a text. I don't know if I can find it. Well, I'll tell you what the text was. I told him, Joe, I like the Red Sox. I think they're going to hit 3 home runs.
really,
I swear to you, that's what I said to him.
did you bet on that?
No. If I bet on it, they wouldn't hit a home run.
Yeah, Joe Rocco does pretty well with those kinds of, educated guesses.
Yeah, yeah. And he texted me this morning and asked me what I liked in the
Tampa, what'd you say?
Tampa Red Sox. I said, the Red Sox pitching is less than stellar unless Sales comes out like he's supposed to, unless he plays the way he's supposed to.
There's another stat I said to Joe. Joe said he thought that Tampa was pretty heavily favored. I said,
2-1.
But the season series, 11-8 Tampa. It wasn't like 14-3 or something, right? No, I'm.
It's only a 5-game series. The underdog has a big advantage in all.
They made a believer out of me last night.
Yeah,
I do believe, and they got a lot of their hits down the lineup. The Yankees, 5 of their 6 hits were their top 3 hitters.
Right.
So the Red Sox got production from.
You got to get production
lots of
from the
people.
bottom of the lineup. I'm a baseball fan my whole life. Played it, loved it, always loved baseball.
How old are you? Are you old enough to play on my team?
Not yet. Close.
Stay healthy.
Stay healthy. Nice seeing you.
Thanks. Good to see you too, Bobby. Always good to see you.
Mike Lyons. Congratulations
Thanks,
again.
Partner. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Hall of Fame.
Thanks. Yeah.
And we'll be right back.
Pretty cool.
Oh, hi, folks. We're back. Mike had to leave, so I'm going to continue the show alone. I wanted Mike to stay the whole time, but he's just getting over a bad illness, as a matter of fact, and he's got to go for tests and stuff. But what a great guy, huh? Anyway, we got the box here. I showed it to you before. This is my elephant box. Reminds me of Thailand, because Thailand is, elephants are big in Thailand. And I'm going to open the box. I'm going to not even look. I'm going to pull out, these are for my guest, but I'm going to answer some of these questions in here myself. Now, what is this? These are different questions I put. Oh, you know what this is? This is on the back. I don't know if we're going to be able to see this. I couldn't believe this. I bought some Head & Shoulders shampoo, and I put it on my head, and it burnt like hell. And it burnt down the side of my face. I mean, I couldn't wash it off fast enough. But even after I washed it off, it was killing me. I actually ended up going to a doctor, a dermatologist, and he said I burnt my scalp. And I end up looking at the back of the Head & Shoulders bottle, and it has some ingredients here. I couldn't even dare to attempt to try to pronounce the words. A couple of these words are over 20 letters on these chemicals. And I noticed on the back of the bottle, this was a label placed over the original ingredient label. And also, at the bottom, it said, product of Thailand. So they copied it and made this stuff for Head & Shoulders company, whoever their company is, and they made it for them. But they may have used the same ingredients, but they obviously, it appears that they didn't use the same percentages of ingredients. Therefore, it burnt my skin. So it took weeks to clear it up. But since then, I have not bought any liquids from Job Lot because of it. And I went back there and I looked and I saw other things that were there that were not American made. And that's okay with certain products, but not stuff that you're going to put on your body or in your body, I think. Anyway, it was just something that I wouldn't do again. I'm not telling you you shouldn't, but I'm telling you I won't. Let's see what we got here. Oh, you know what? This was an enforcement. This was talking about litter. This was a question I had, but never got to. Yeah, I did get to with the Attorney General about litter, right? I did get to that question. And it's one of my pet peeves, how people are so easy about throwing stuff on the ground, throwing stuff out the window. I don't know. Did I tell the story of I pulled the side of a guy? I think I did. I pulled the side of a guy over by Dave All Square. We're both at the red light, and he took the wrapper he had opened the sandwich, he took the outside wrapper, and he threw it out the window. And I looked over at him, I said, what the hell did you do that for? He goes, mind your own business. I said, you're littering, you're throwing stuff on the street. You know what he did? He threw the sandwich at me. Real smart guy he was. He ended up without a sandwich. I mean, I got it all over my windshield. Thank God it didn't get in the car, but all over the windshield. He had a big sandwich, a big grinder, hoagie, whatever you want to call it, sub. The whole sandwich he threw at me because I kind of chastised him for throwing trash on the ground. Oh, we got two of them here. What do we got here? Mask or no mask? What do you think of that? Mask or no mask? I don't like to wear a mask, but I think it's important that you do wear a mask. These crazy stories that, reasons why people don't want to get vaccinated, I think are just that, crazy stories. I got vaccinated, and I wish more people did, because then we wouldn't have to wear a mask. I just think that this is a very, very dangerous thing that's killed, over 400 million people in the United States alone. I think we have to get vaccinated. And again, when we go in public with a lot of people around and you don't know who's vaccinated and who's not, you almost have to wear a mask. I would love, and I've been dying to, one of my bucket lists, if I had one, is to go on a cruise. I want to go on a cruise. I'm dying to go on a cruise of the Mediterranean. I've been on a lot of cruises, all of the Caribbean, but I've never done a cruise of the Mediterranean. And as a half Italian, where my father's family is from Italy, I've never been to Italy. And I've been to a lot of countries. And I always wanted to go to Italy. And I figured this is the best way for me to go to Italy, is to fly to Rome, spend a few days in Italy, jump on a cruise ship, cruise around Italy, and then also hit maybe Spain. And then one cruise I'm looking at in May, go to Spain and then come back around and go to Greece, then hit Montenegro and Croatia, and come back to Italy. Two things that are affecting that. One is the pandemic and this mask, no mask. And the other thing is, if I go alone, I got to pay for the whole cabin, which is expensive. Although the cruise is much cheaper. They're 60% off right now because there's not a lot of people that are going on cruises. The ships are leaving half full. But on the good side, anybody on the cruise, including the crew, captain included, has to be vaccinated and has to show positive proof of vaccination within 3 days of the cruise. They have to take a test within 3 days of the cruise to make sure they're not infected. Because, obviously, on a cruise ship, infected people could infect a lot more people because they're all they're all together. But don't be fooled. Cruise ships are very, very large. We're talking 1,200 feet, which is 4 football fields, and 200 feet wide. So you could be on a cruise with someone and leave them and on purpose not go back, and they would never find you. That's how big these ships are. Some of them are 10 stories high. Actually, if you went down to the crew deck, they're probably 18 stories high. And they're just huge. And I find it to be the best way to travel, to get to see the most for your money for the least amount of money. And the cruise I'm looking at, the one in May, I could go on and get a balcony for under $1,900, plus flight, of course, per person. That's unbelievable. The regular price of that cruise is like $7,000. But because of the pandemic and because of people who are reluctant to go on cruises right now, some people, that is so much cheaper. Anyhow, that's that one. What do you think of, this question is, what do you think of people speaking another language in front of you? When you're right there and they start talking in front of you, is that any different than two people whispering in front of you? Isn't that not cool that people do that? I don't like it. I know that. I'll tell you that. They shouldn't do it. Okay, let's do it. Oh, look at this. You want to save money? People waste. This is one of my saving money things. Usually you try it the last, it's empty. No, it's not empty. You tip it upside down, and the next morning you use it again. I tried that. I got 11 more shots out of it, 11 more shots. And I just went, and on top of it, I just went to buy more of this particular brand of roll-on deodorant. And it went up from $5 change to $7.99 at the same store I was buying it at. From $5 change to $7.99. Just telling you. Get 11 more days out of it. All right, here we are. Uh-oh. Dealing with chronic pain. This is one of my issues, one of my favorite issues. As a chronic pain sufferer myself, having had 5 back operations, 5 knee operations, both rotator cuffs done, and Achilles tendon, I deal with pain all the time. And when I hear people say, oh, Bob, you don't know what pain is, they got some kind of ailment, something happened, they sprained their leg or broke their arm or something, and they go, you don't know what pain is. I go, yeah, I do. I think I do. And chronic pain people, and I know a lot of them, they are in pain and dealing with pain all the time and still smiling, like myself. People say to me, you don't look like you're in pain. Well, I am. But you get to, either you live with it or you don't live with it. And unfortunately, when the people that have chronic pain and don't live with it, they end up doing bad things to themselves. But when you see someone and you know someone that's in pain all the time, have a little consideration for them. Anyway, that's enough of that. All right, let's see what we got here now. This is fun. Oh, you ever go to the supermarket, and if you hadn't noticed, I'm a shopper. I love to shop, even grocery shop. And I will bet you that 8 out of 10 people, first of all, do not know what unit pricing is. That's that orange tag. When you see the price of something like, say, $3.99, and then you see there's a little orange price next to it, and that's the price per pound or per quart or per gallon or whatever. And a good example of that is potato chips. You look at potato chips, they'll say, oh, this one's $3.99, and that's $4.69. So I'm going to buy the $3.99. No, wait a minute. Let's look at the unit pricing. The $3.99 bag of potato chips is $7.99 a pound. The $4.59 bag of potato chips is $5.99 a pound. So even though this is a little more, $4.59 versus $3.99, this is a much better deal. A much better deal. And I see that so often, but I so few times do I see a person using, because I ask people all the time, unit pricing. Do you know what that is? Do you know what the difference is? That's a better, they pick up the wrong thing. And I'll say to them, no, you're better off with this other thing, or this other brand. Or even, and ironically, sometimes it's the same brand. And what's a real joke is we're programmed to think that the bigger container is more the cheaper deal. It's not always the case. Perfect example. I went to buy a mayonnaise, Hellman's mayonnaise. And the quart was a particular price, and the bigger, I don't know what is a half, 2-quart thing, container. And you would think the 2-quart container, which would be less than double the 1-quart container, but it was more. So you were getting short-ended by buying, if you bought the bigger container, it would cost you more per ounce or per quart based on unit pricing. If you looked at that orange area in the supermarket, you would figure out that the quart, in this case, was cheaper. 2 quarts were cheaper to buy than the half gallon. And what this means about wrong tag, when you buy something, you see something on sale, I am definitely one of these people. I go buy something, I see the price, and oh, this is a deal, and I grab it because it's on sale. And they run it through the machine, and if you're not watching them, it's not the cashier's fault, it's just that they hadn't changed the number or changed the barcode. Say, we'll go to the $3.99 potato chip thing again. Say the potato chips are normally $5.99, but they're on sale for $3.99. Well, say they didn't change the barcode on it. Well, they scan it through the computer, and it scans at $5.99. If you don't notice it, you're going to get charged $5.99 for that, even though you only bought it because it was on sale for $3.99. So you got to watch it all the time because it happens a lot more times than you think. Something, at least one item, maybe even more, will scan at the higher price than you expect it to, or than you think it does. You've got to watch those numbers. And again, it's not the cashier's fault. It's somebody not changing the barcode or the code on that particular item. All right, what else we got? Oh, here's a good one. Ancestry.com. I know I talked about this a while ago. Oh God, it was a year and a half ago, so it's kind of new. I did my ancestry, right? Now, I already said it. My father was from Italy, directly from Italy. And my mother was French, half French, a quarter Irish, and a quarter English. So that makes me half Italian, a quarter Irish, and 12.5% English and 12.5% Irish, right? You would think. Well, I had my ancestry done, and when I had it done, if my mother was still alive, I would have been questioning her, because I come back as 42% French, which doesn't make sense, 31% English and Northern European, whatever that means, 15% Scottish and Irish, 5% German, 3% Greek, and only 2% Italian. It doesn't make any sense at all. And so the reason I would have questioned my mother was, wait a minute, was my father my father? I'm not coming up with, I only got 2% Italian, should be 50%. Well, that was trumped by the fact that my son comes back as 25% Italian, which would be correct. If I'm 50% Italian, he did come back as 25% Italian. So therefore, it's this thing that's wrong. It makes no sense. I don't know how they come up with the number. I mean, for me to only be, I mean, shouldn't they even just looked at the name and saw that that was more Italian? You know, the name is Italian. And I only come up with 2% Italian. It makes no sense. So that ancestry isn't always right. And supposedly DNA is right, but it's not. How much time we got left? How many minutes we got left? All right. Why not like Canada? Nothing is free. I don't get that. Oh, litter again, litter. Well, I know what the Canadian thing was about. Why not like Canada? You go to Canada, you see the difference between the United States and Canada as far as litter is concerned. You ask anybody that's been to Canada, and I'll bet, if not the first thing they say about Canada, it's certainly in the top 3. It's clean. That's the first thing I hear. That's the first thing I notice. You go to Canada, it's clean. It's clean because they don't tolerate litter. It's clean because anybody collecting from the government, for whatever reason, unless they're handicapped and unable to do it, they are assigned an area around their house, like a block or 2, whatever, and their job is to keep that area clean. And if that area is not clean, they're not getting their substance check, their welfare check, whatever you want to call it. So they are obligated to take care of that area if they're not working and have another job or whatever, have a job, I should say. So when you go to, I was downtown Montreal, and I see this guy on this rig. It was a wild-looking rig. It looked like a combination snowblower, vacuum cleaner, plow, and lawnmower. And this guy was on the sidewalk, driving down the sidewalk, and he had this hose, about an 8-inch hose, 8-inch round hose, with a handle on it. It was in the summer. And he's driving on the sidewalk, and he's sucking up with this big hose. He's sucking up beer bottles, cups, containers, all in the gutter, all the way down the street and on the sidewalk. He's riding this thing on the sidewalk at 1 mile an hour, 2 miles an hour, and he's picking up anything that's around, anything that's on the ground. And I stopped and I started talking to him. I said, wow, that's a crazy piece of equipment. Where'd you get that? He goes, that's what I was assigned with. This thing, in the summertime, it's got a vacuum, like I said. In the wintertime, it's got a snowblower, like I said. And he's assigned to clean the sidewalks and the streets, the sidewalk and the gutter. And in the wintertime, he's assigned to keep that sidewalk clear. That's why also in the wintertime, they get more snow than we do. But if you've been up there in the winter, you notice, you go, wait a minute, how come the United States ain't like that? Their sidewalks are all clean, all the way around. His block, he was assigned a block where he lives, and he has to drive around the whole thing and plow it. And he does it several times a day in the wintertime. Make sure that is right down to the pavement, clean, all the time. And then, again, in the summertime, he goes 2 or 3 times a day around the block, making sure there's no litter anywhere to be found. And then if you're caught littering, it's a huge fine on top of it. But my point is that they're giving somebody, and he liked doing it too. You're giving somebody a responsibility, and he enjoyed having that task because it was a sense of pride for him to know that his area was clean, spotlessly clean all the time. So even though, in fact, if they ever did that here, the ACLU would be all over the state for doing it. You know, if they made people go out and, God forbid, do some work for their money. If they did that here, it would never fly. But it flies in Canada, and they do it in Canada, and that's why Canada is so clean. We're running out of questions here, so we got enough time for a couple more. Oh, coin counting machines. You've seen these in the supermarkets. I know there's one in the Stop and Shop I go into. They were removed from TD Bank because they found out they were up to 15% off. You throw all your coins in there, and they tell you how much you had in there. They found out they were upwards of 15% off. One customer fed $300 into a machine and got a ticket worth, I guess they have to cash it in with the cashier or something, or in the service department or something, I don't know how they work. Fed in $300 worth of coins and get $256.90. Fortunately, the person had counted the money. They knew how much money they had. They put they just didn't want to roll it. They threw $300 worth of nickels, pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters in this machine. They're doing you a favor, these coin count machines. Plus, they take a percentage of it. I don't know if they still do, but they used to take a percentage up to 8.5% or 9%. So if you put $100 worth of coins in, you only get $91 or $92 of the $100 worth of coins. Imagine you put in $300 worth of coins and get $256.90 back. So let that be a lesson to you. Don't be so lazy. Count your own coins, right? I enjoy counting coins. Oh, my favorite. Citizens Bank overdraft. I think I told this story more than a couple of times. I had an overdraft. I had my knee operated on, and I was sending my nephew over to get these $1.07 tax, the red box, get movies for me. 11 times he went. I also had him make my deposits for me from my rentals. And unfortunately for me, they were putting it in my savings account instead of my checking account. So I had 2 automatic withdrawals from my checking account, and I had these $11 from these red box. Well, don't you know that instead of taking the $11 out first, they took the 2 overdrafts for my insurances. And it ended up, when all said and done, it cost me $550 with overdrafts that Citizens Bank did on me, a bank I had been dealing with since 1977. I stopped dealing with them in 2010. And I stopped after going to see the guy that I closed the account with, who was a floater at the East Avenue branch, and went to see him at his regular branch in East Providence, and he was embarrassed about the whole thing. And I had closed the account with him when he was in East Providence one week, and then I got 2 overdrafts. They ended up paying the 2 bank insurance checks, and they overdrafted me for those 2. So I went to the bank to clear it up, paid those for the overdrafts, and I still got charged for the $78. And I go to pay them. I tell him I'm going to pay the amount, but I'm not paying for the overdrafts. And he goes, oh, you know, it's going to hurt your credit. So I said, what can we do? So he says, look, I'll find out. He talked to the head teller, and they settled on $54.58. So I write a check out, hand it to him. He goes back out to the head teller, comes back in with his head down. He goes, Bob, I can't believe this. I changed from Citizens Bank to Navigant Credit Union. He goes, Bob, they won't accept your check because you don't have an account here. So I end up fortunately I carried cash with me. I had enough to pay them, but I was livid, and I had never dealt with Citizens Bank since 2010 because of that. And that's my story, and thank you for spending an hour with us.